Yeah, man. All right, guys, this is Crazy Kevin here, and I'm here with Chris Brennan. Chris, how we doing?
Awesome. How are you? Thank you.
Doing good, my man. So, Chris, obviously it's been a long time since you seen in the cage and everything. How's life been and what have you been up to?
Oh man, it's been good. I haven't fought in I don't know, 13 years probably. And then when I retired, I competed and won the Nogi Jiu-Jitsu World Championships 3 years in a row. And then right then is kind of when my kids started training, and I just doubled down and focused on them. And I had a couple shoulder surgeries right after I was gonna do Worlds again in like 2016. Tore my left one. The following year, tore my right one. The following year, tore my bicep on the other side. I was like, well, I made it through my entire career fighting with no surgery, so it was pretty cool. But yeah, I literally fell apart at the end of the grappling part. It was good timing though for my kids to start, started competing at a high level, and then Lucas started fighting, and Tyler started wrestling in college, and it's been awesome.
Nice, nice. Now, obviously, you're mentioning you have problems with your shoulders. I actually have two torn labrums at the moment myself. What's recovery like after you got your shoulder surgeries and stuff?
It wasn't bad. I mean, I guess had it happened in the middle of my career, it would have been bad. It would have been a long time off. But I probably took 6 to 7 months. But I had my rotator labrum subscap
Oh.
and bicep on this one, and then the same thing on this one. And then right when I came back from this one, I threw a left hook that missed and tore my bicep off the elbow. So, and then while doing surgery, they bumped my radial nerve. So my left hand didn't work for 7 months, like zero feeling in my left hand and arm, and I'm left-handed. So it was rough.
You saying that in another interview. They said it was going to be like 30 to 60 days or something like that. And then it was like 7 months. That had to have freaked you out, right? Like not having that feeling for that long, right?
For sure. He goes, normal's I think I can't remember if he said 30 days or 3 months, but normal is that. And he's doing, you're not normal. It's gonna be way faster than that. And I was like, cool. And then like nothing, man. No, the first time I could go like this and move my pinky, I was like, oh
That's insane. Yeah, that's pretty
yeah.
crazy. Now, another thing too, I think is pretty interesting. You opened up your gym as a blue belt. Talk to us a little bit about opening up your gym and what that experience was like.
Well, I opened in a time when, first of all, I opened as a Nogi Jiu-Jitsu gym. So I was like blackballed from jiu-jitsu, the jiu-jitsu world for a while. And the Brazilians, they hated it because their whole thing was you have to train in the gi to be good without the gi. And I was like, oh, I'm going to prove you wrong. And even later, man, even when I'm winning worlds, guys are like, you have to train it to be good in it. That's not real jujitsu. And I'm like, well, tell the jujitsu guy that I just beat in the finals of worlds that he just got beat by something other than jujitsu. You know what I mean? So it's always been, whatever, kind of fortunate. Eddie got a lot of credit for it. So he had to take the brunt end of a lot of it just because he was more popular, with Joe and all those guys. So but I took the gi off in the end of 97 and never put it back on again, except for some pictures.
So when like Lucas and like your kids train, do you ever like have them train their gi or they've just never done it at all either?
They've never put one on. Well, there's actually a guy that owns a gym in Dallas named Alex Martin. And one day the boys were competing and they're super technical, like super technical. And he's watching them and he's like, how did their jiu-jitsu get so good? Who teaches jiu-jitsu at your gym? And I looked at him like, and I'm like, are you messing with me? And I go, I did. And he goes, well, where do they train gi? And I said, they've never put a gi on. And he's like, well, how'd they get so technical? I'm like, well, because I teach them technical no-gi jiu-jitsu, right? Like he acted like it's only like monkeys trained in no-gi and it's wild and not technical. And I was like, man, like I've literally dedicated my life to this for 30 years. Of grips and handles and everything of nogi. So yeah, I stuck to the principles of jujitsu when taking the gi off, so I was able to continue to train and teach very technically.
It's nice. That makes sense. Now, for guys that like train in gi, like what advantages do they have versus people that like aren't wearing a gi?
Like if I'm training against the guy who's wearing a gi,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I guess he's got like the Ezekiel choke and some things, but like if a gi guy comes into my gym, I know instantly when we start rolling that he's a gi guy, just by things that they try to do that aren't there. And you're creating habits that aren't there when you take the gi off, and goes vice versa. If I want to put the gi on, I'm going to be, if I've never worn it before, I'm going to be in trouble for sure. But I think no-gi is more practical for every day. Like anything I can do in no-gi, I can do it with a gi on. But anything you can do with a gi on, you cannot do without it.
That makes sense.
The
Now,
sleeve, the collars, all of that stuff is just, so all the grips are there or are not there when you take it off.
right. No, that definitely makes sense. And I guess another thing I have for you too is when you're opening up the gym, do you have like any regrets for it? Is there anything you would change if you were to open a gym? I guess knowing what you know now.
No, only because it built me. It made me who I am today. I dropped out of school in ninth grade. I opened a gym. I made it to the finals of the UFC tournament and took the money and came home and opened a gym. And for 7 months, it was basically me and my buddy's training facility, because the students, I might have had like 30 students, and it wasn't enough to keep the building open that I had. So we were there for like 7 months, closed. My business sense was obviously, I had zero. So then went back to my garage, and I had a 3-car garage in an apartment complex, which was really cool. And I matted the whole thing, and we trained in there, and I got student after student after student. In a year, I had about 60 to 70 students. And then I went into a building, and man, I used a lot of common sense and street smarts that I learned growing up over the school and book smarts to run business. And I had a lot of people try to take advantage of me. And if I was just I would say like a high school, college person education, I'd have probably gotten taken advantage of. But I saw it, from a mile away. So it really never happened to me. But the things, I would go home and be like, can you believe that they thought they could do that? And so I learned a lot business wise that way. But that gym, we were in for a year, and then we moved into a big gym. And from that point on, I've always had, 5, 6, 7, 8, now 9,000 square foot gyms, and a lot of students. I've got 500 students here in Frisco, Texas, and a beautiful gym, and I dig it.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. 9,000 square feet. My martial arts gym that I teach at is 2,000, so I can only imagine having 9,000. That's incredible, man. Keep it up. And I guess
and I'm in a storefront too, like a shopping center. So like Target's across the way, Best Buy's across the way, and I'm in something like that. So it's expensive, and I would love to be like, if I was paying even half of what I'm paying in a like a warehouse industrial area, I could have twice the space, for sure.
well, another thing is too, you've cornered a bunch of legends, man. Do you have maybe a favorite memory of your cornering experiences?
Nothing compares to coaching the corner and Lucas.
That's absolutely, yeah.
Until Tyler fights, there's just not going to be. I've had great experiences cornering, good guys. I was in Jeremy Horn's corner when he choked Chuck Liddell. I was in Tito's corner the night he beat Guy Mesner. I've cornered a lot of big fights. To be honest, just recently I was in Victor Altamirano's corner in Mexico City when he got robbed. But the walkout alone with a guy who is from Mexico City, that's the first time I fought or I've walked out with somebody in an event like that. I've been watching them on TV because they weren't that big when I was fighting. They were big, but 10,000 or something. But the walkout was insane. We were just talking about it yesterday. There were people above us chanting Mexico before for 5 minutes before we finally walked out. And then the lady's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we started walking, and it was just like a tunnel of people. It was just crazy. Super cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing compares to Lucas' first fight of the night on the prelims. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And that's really cool. Another thing I think is really interesting, you mentioned when you were, I guess, in the corner with Lucas, he had like a starburst in his mouth and he was able to like talk more and all that different stuff. How'd you come up with that? I was just curious about that.
Man, we ran the streets of Japan looking for starburst for me before when we forgot him. It's just something that I did. I don't even remember the first fight, but I can tell you that it was very early on in my career. I would get cottonmouth really bad. And so I did it in training, and I was like, man, this is a good idea. So I basically bite a starburst in half, and then I bite that in half, and I put a quarter piece in each side of my mouthpiece and shove it in, and then bite into it. And your mouth basically salivates for the rest of the fight and stays wet, so you don't get that cotton mouth feeling. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. No, it's definitely interesting. I never heard of anything like that. Like I said, when I heard you mention that, I thought that was really cool. And
Yeah, his
another
first
thing.
fight, he came back to the corner between round 1 and round 2, and he'd literally never been in anything like this. And he's 17 years old, about to start his senior year in high school. He's fighting a 26-year-old dude with a wife and kids. And he comes back to the corner, and he sits down, and he goes, "Man, that starburst in the mouthpiece thing's pretty awesome." And I'm like, okay. Is that what we're going to talk about?
That's awesome. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool. Obviously, you mentioned you were with Tito. Another story, you also mentioned Kevin Randleman. Do you happen to have any funny stories with Tito and Kevin Randleman you could share?
No. I the night I cornered Tito, I don't know who was with him or why I was in his corner. Like, I knew him, but I don't know why he didn't have like a regular group of guys with him. And when it was over, we got him and Ken got into it, and it turned into like all of the Lions Den guys. And for some reason, the Hammer House guys too were angry at him. And we were locked in a small room for a while until we got police escorted back to the hotel. And Randleman was on the other with the other guys. But when we finally got back to the hotel, Tito and Kevin, I don't know if I said it on another interview or something, but I walked into a hotel room, and it was just like covered with smoke from weed, and there were dudes doing lines on the table, and I'm just like, holy shit. And I was so bummed because those are the guys you look up to, right? Like, those are the guys who I thought were the best in the world. And I'm thinking, God, how can they do this and be that guy, And there are, I guess more than one John Jones out there, but I try to encourage everybody, like, you're not that guy. Like, don't assume that you are that guy, that you can party tonight and fight the best guy in the world tomorrow and have a chance.
Yeah, no, 100%. I definitely agree with you there. And obviously you mentioned cornering Lucas is like fantastic. What are maybe like your goals that you have for Lucas with his fighting career?
Well, getting to the UFC, now that everything's gone awry with Bellator, he is the goal is to fight coming up and get into the UFC, and then from that point just kind of probably start over. We were working our way not even voluntarily into the rankings of Bellator. They were rushing the rankings and everything, kind of with a lot of guys. Some of the guys that were in the rankings hadn't even fought anybody in the rankings, so it was just kind of the media was doing it, and they were trying to push him a lot. So it's whatever. We're in no rush from the beginning when we signed with them, and they treated him awesome. They were fantastic. They paid him well. He made very good money. He actually made more per contract than I was asking for in the contracts. They were paying him more than we asked for, and that happened more than one time. So I don't expect that to happen again.
No.
But we really liked being there. It was a very kind of tight, close knit group. And just wanted to continue to grow and grow and grow, and worked our way, gradually to the top of Bellator, and try to get the belt there, and either stay there, kind of do basically what AJ McKee did when we first signed. That's what I asked for. I basically said, give me the same lineup type of thing that AJ did, same contract, whatever, and that was where we were headed. Then like, if we ever left, it would have to be something like a Michael Chandler, Eddie Alvarez type thing, where we got paid very well to go, and there wasn't a whole lot left, to do in Bellator. Otherwise, we're content staying there. I know everyone's like, "Oh, but the best are over there." Well, in reality, he started fighting to make, $1 million, to get to a certain amount of money to put away, to invest, and to, then continue teaching jiu-jitsu and wrestling and running his wrestling program. And so he just happens to be really good, at some of the things that make you a fantastic fighter. He wasn't like a dick growing up, fighter like I was. He's the opposite of how I was growing up. And I think that's what's made him calm in the cage and fight so well. Even during adversity, he's done well. And so yeah, that was the goal. And now the goal is to transition to the UFC. And, you know, I they don't do it like they did over there. I doubt he gets rushed anywhere there. We'll have plenty of time to fight on the bottom side of the top 15, like 15 and out, before even getting anywhere near the rankings, and which is fine. It's fine by us. And he's not going to be like a Bo Nickel or somebody who comes in and says, "Hey, I want the top guy. I want the top guy." Like, especially because I believe when we get there, we're entering what's probably the toughest division in the world at the moment. 30 or 145 is crazy. 35 and 50 or 35 and 45 is pretty wild. So it would be dumb to do that. The goal is to get better, to improve. We're getting ready to go in a couple weeks to Vegas and train with some really good guys in Vegas, and for a couple weeks. And that's it. Just he's very humble, and the goal is to kind of stay humble, but find a good mix of confidence and humility at the same time. And that's it. Get there and make some waves.
Yeah, yeah, no, I definitely am looking forward to that. And obviously you're one of the OGs of fighting. You've been fighting. Obviously, you started like 1997, I believe, and ended in like 2012. And how do you think MMA has evolved since you were fighting?
Oh, I mean, it's been wild changes.
Oh yeah,
Rules for one. There's so many more rules. There's rounds. There's weight
yeah,
classes. Like it's a completely different sport now. And I was just talking to somebody this morning about thank goodness for him that there's someone like me, because for me, I was like, they'll offer anybody. I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. It's a challenge. What if I win? It was never like, oh, what if I lose? It was always, what if I win? What if I beat Pat Miletich? There's a chance. And the first one was a 20-minute draw. The second was a 30-minute split decision, one round. And I had zero fight experience at that time besides like street fighting, So he was very early on in my career, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I can be good at this. And so but then so many things change, rounds change, rules change. I fought for SEG and then fought for Zuffa once, later. That was a huge change already. Then I fought in Japan, and the rule changes. I think it's a huge thing. I think the hand down bullshit that people play to not get kicked in the head or knee in the head. I believe that the no knees to the head, whether I don't think it was a safety thing. I think it was to force people to not play jiu-jitsu. Like, hypothetically, there's knees to the head, and I'm sprawled on. I'm going to sit to my butt. I'm either going to finish my takedown, but if I can't, I'm going to sit to my butt and play guard. Otherwise, I'm going to get my head kneed off. There's so many positions that would force you to play a guard position because of knees to the head on the ground, that I think that's why there's no knees to the head on the ground. I think if you added that, it would force people to play jiu-jitsu again, and that makes for a boring fight for the crowd, depending on where you are.
That's a really interesting perspective, because I was always wondering that myself, why that role has never changed. But I think that's actually a really solid point that you just brought up there. One other thing I have for you, I'm from Philadelphia. We were talking a little bit about it. Talk to us a little bit about my boy Dylan Rush. What do you think about him?
I love Dylan, man. He's such a great kid. I talk to him a lot. I'll hit him up in his DM sometimes just to check on him. And he was, I don't know what Bellator he showed up, for us, but it was somewhere at Mohegan. I think was one of the first ones, and then later on. But him and Lucas clicked really well, and Dylan, he's such a great kid. And it was cool to see him do it different than everybody. You know what I mean? He did it how he wanted. He did it chill. He's just in his regular clothes and very casual, but and funny. he's one of the best guys out there, I think, as far as doing this goes, and I'm sure he will continue to get better. I know he's doing something now with the UFC, which is awesome for him, and he deserves that.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, I've never met him personally. I happened to see one of his videos on Instagram, and I was like, man, this kid's awesome, and he just kind of inspired me to kind of start doing this stuff. So I DM'd him. We were kind of going back and forth, and like you said, he's a phenomenal kid, and I hope for the best with him, man. He's really awesome, and
Sure.
yeah, I mentioned earlier too. I'm a Taekwondo instructor. I've been I've been teaching for 6 years now, training for 19 years, man. I just love what I do. And with that being said, with all the guys I have in my gym, what advice would you give to them to keep coming into the gym and to keep on getting better and better every single day?
Pay attention to the coach. I run into this so much. Just last night, even in my jiu-jitsu class, I can't stand if I'm teaching like front headlock stuff and I look over someone's doing leg locks, right? Or arm bars or anything other than what I'm showing. And especially like my gym is open 24 hours a day. Okay. You can come in 24 hours a day. So for the hour and a half that you're in my class, you better be paying attention to me. If you want to do that other crap, do it on your own. You can come in at any time and do that. And there's 3 different mats, that you can do it on. So, give me I'm here for you. So be here for me. So I just think show up consistently, listen to the coach and drill what the coach is showing. And, even when you're sore, come in and don't spar, come in and drill, and don't, if you're exhausted, or whatever, just come in. And I think, even when guys are injured, come in and sit on the sideline and learn, come in and learn and go home, but it'll get the itch out of you. You don't sit home bored trying to, eating to get fat. You're in the gym still, whether you can train or not. And then when you can train, be training. And another big thing is I think you need to, it's hard because not everyone has the same mentality, but I think you need to seek out the best guys, seek out at least the better guys that are better than you. And so if you're a white belt, either be finding the best white belt or a blue belt, and so on and so forth to get good training and to have that guy who's better than you, something to chase. Something to chase is always important.
Yeah, I can't stand that as well too, man. I'll be teaching these kids like a kicking combination, but can we do this? Can we do that? I'm like, no, focus on that one, man. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
stay off
definitely hear when it
YouTube,
comes to
bro.
that. Huh?
Stay off YouTube.
Yeah, literally. And Chris, it's been awesome talking to you, man. And I just wanted to ask, what's maybe a final message out there for the fans that are going to be watching this video?
Oh man, half of you are probably never heard of me because you're young. But if you can go back and watch my videos on YouTube. I've got a ton of them, highlight videos on there and stuff, instructional videos. And then more than anything, pay attention to my kids. My son Lucas is coming up right now, and then my other one, Tyler, is wrestling Division I in college, and he's got one more season, and then he'll be fighting, and he'll be doing the same thing that go on the same type of run that Lucas just did. So he'll be. Thanks for watching and appreciate it.
So, yeah, I really thought that was one of the coolest things too. When I was reaching out to you for the interview, just right away, you were like, "Yeah, man, you should be reaching out to Lucas instead." I really thought that was awesome. You were just pushing Lucas right away, and
I'll tell you what the
I hope
highlight
big
was.
things for them. What's that?
When he first started fighting, the first minute and a half of the fight, they're talking about me. And I told it, and that happened the first 2 fights. I'm like, it's gonna stop, And it didn't bother him, but it bothered me. I wanted to be Lucas's dad. And then when we went to the locker room, I can't remember if it was like the 3rd fight when I finally noticed it, but huge letters, Lucas Brennan, and then Chris Brennan, Rafael Casillas, had the coaches below. I was like, that's what I wanted to see. That's all I care about is I want him to be himself and do his own thing. And sure, if we get places, or any sort of benefits because of me, cool. But he's working. He's the one that's doing the work. So otherwise, I would rather be like, yeah, his dad did this, instead of my son is this guy.
No, that's incredible stuff, man. And I'm definitely rooting for Lucas. And thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me, man. It means a lot. And enjoy the rest of your day, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. You too. See you.
Yeah, man. All right, take care. Peace out.